Hey everybody, Anthony Chatfield here, and welcome back to How to Become a Freelancer in 30 Days. Today, we're going to talk about how to find motivation and get things done. The last couple days, we've talked about some pretty, let's just say boring, we'll be honest, day-to-day basic fundamental stuff that you have to do to keep your business moving forward. Today, I want to talk about kind of the mindset and activity and approach that I take and that you can take to help kind of focus and make sure that you're getting things done on a daily basis, but not just that, feeling motivated and enjoying what you're doing. Here's a picture actually of it's a productivity tool I use called Habit RPG. It gives you points and you level up a character. You can buy all sorts of cool armor for. They basically let you create a character and partner up with people and go on quests as you complete your to-do list. It sounds really silly, but it's incredibly addictive, and it's been a great motivator for me to get things done every day. There's a lot of other things, though, and I'm going to talk about a few of them. Some of them simple, some of them more complicated. It really depends on what you already have in place and how you want to build it out. But let's dive in. We'll talk about some of the goals for today. The first thing on the list here I want to talk about is finding a dedicated workspace and a dedicated time in which to work. One of the biggest barriers to being motivated and basically any kind of efficiency is not having a specific place you can go to work. If it doesn't have to be an office necessarily, it just has to be somewhere where you go and you get into work mode. When I started freelancing, I'd work on the couch and I would spend 12 hours doing 5 hours of work, because when you're on the couch, you're tempted to turn on the TV, to watch the baseball game, to stop and take a break. Like, hey, that corner over there is dirty, I should clean that. Oh, looks like the dog needs to go out. You can't create a routine that's separate from your home routine, and it's really hard to stop working because now all of a sudden your home space is your workspace, so you're just in work mode. So it's important to have that. We'll get into that more in a second here. Mapping out habits for a typical day, again, super important. We'll go into the details of how I do that. Gathering together what motivates you. Like, how are you going to get excited about what you're doing and keep yourself moving forward at every possible step? And then finally, creating an organizational system to keep track of your work. This is one of those really basic, again, probably boring things, but I'll admit it. But the reason it helps is that it helps you to not worry about the little details of organizing all your work for the day and focus on all this other cool stuff. So the more you can focus on the cool stuff and the stuff that motivates you, the easier it is to get stuff done and the more fun you're going to have. And that's the important part here. You want to have fun. All right? So first steps first, finding a dedicated workspace. Here's a picture of my first office at home. It's not my first office. I actually had an office space I purchased for 3 years while I ran my business up in Brooklyn, which was great, actually. It was one of those shared working spaces, so I met a lot of friends and nice people who also were running businesses out of the Dumbo region there. But when we bought our house on Staten Island, we had a partially finished attic, and nobody was going to live up there because it had no heat. So I had electricity, though, so that's what mattered. So I went up there and I created an office, and it was perfect. I go up there, it was so quiet and focused, and I could be up there 8-9 hours a day, and I got a lot done. Not everybody has that. I understand that. So you have to find a space that does work. It might be a cellar, it might be your basement, it might be an attic, it might be, an empty spare bedroom. It might be the living room, but maybe a corner of that living room. It's wherever you can go that you don't typically go. Find a space that you don't already do something in and can focus and get things done. If you're motivated by being with a group of people, freelancing is going to be tough, but there are a few ways to get around that. I work in coffee shops frequently. I used to spend probably 30 to 40% of any given day in a coffee shop just because there's people around and it was a nice break from the day. Libraries are good if you want it free and a little quieter. And parks are great in the summer, as long as you have a decent computer where you can see the screen in the sun. It never sounded good until I'd get there. And then I'm like, why am I not doing this every single day? The park is amazing, but it only works for a few months out of the year. Once you have that, once you have a good space you can work in, it's time to start creating habits. The reason this is so important is because working from home is really hard. There's no getting around that. A lot of people can't do it. Some people try and fail. I've had a lot of people I've talked to and shown a lot of this content to start freelancing and do a really good job of it, and just they have to back out because they can't focus and get enough done at home. They're not efficient enough when they're in the house. And it makes sense. I mean, that's where that's home. It's where you relax. It's where you do chores. It's where you're with time with the family. It's hard to say no to your family. It took a long time for me to learn how to do that. It's not easy, but the way to make it easier is to create habits that turn into a routine. So, for example, I very early on, maybe the second year of freelancing, created a 9 to 5 schedule. It was actually more of a 7 to 2 schedule at the time, but it was a dedicated time, for 7, 8 hours every day that I would sit down and work, regardless of how much work I had to do. If I only had 2 hours of work to do, I would still sit down for that time and do something, work on my website or build out my portfolio or contact new people. And that's how I made sure that in my head, I always knew when I was supposed to be working. When I transitioned back into the corporate world, a couple of years ago, this was actually extremely easy for me because I was already working a 9 to 5 every day. The commute was different. That was about it. So actually sitting down and working for 8 hours a day, not an issue. A lot of people freelance and they'll just work an hour here, an hour there, an hour over here. Maybe I'll take this day off. That's great. You have the freedom to do that. It makes vacations super easy. It makes travel very easy. It makes spending time with your kids and doing things with them when they're out really easy. All things I miss. But it also makes it really hard if you ever have to transition back into a full-time job, or if you take on a lot of work all of a sudden and need to get a lot more done in a day. So I recommend having a habit in place, some kind of routine you can follow. One really cool thing you can do to get started with that is to read The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is a book I read about 4 years ago, and it talks about, it's very anecdotal. It talks about a lot of different ways people build habits, but it also talks about how the brain works and where habits are stored and how they're accessed and how you build habits over time. Highly recommend it to anybody becoming a freelancer, because then you can train yourself to do these things. So decide what you want those habits to be and focus on them daily. Some good habits that I would recommend: waking up early, and early is relative. For example, I have 2 small children, so I get up at 4:30 every day. I don't recommend that unless you have to do it. But if you want to start working at 9, get up at 6:30 or 7. Have time to exercise and eat breakfast and take a shower and get ready for work. Complete X per day. Back when I was writing freelance, I would make a goal to complete, I think, 5,000 words every morning before I would switch gears and eat lunch. That was pretty straightforward, but I knew that if I didn't get up by a certain point, it would be really hard to get that done. So it was just a habit to get it done, regardless of how much content I actually had to write. Exercising and eating well. This kind of goes without saying, but if you don't do the basics to take care of yourself, everything else on this list becomes so much harder. Highly recommend exercising every morning before you start working, and don't get in the habit of eating junk food just because you're sitting at home. It makes your life so much harder. It's so hard to get anything done if you're eating junk food. And then journaling and recording your successes. This is 2 separate things. I do, in the morning, I spend 15 minutes outlining my day. I set goals for the day, and at the end of the day, I write down everything I did for that day. So kind of outlining what I want to do and then what I got done. So I start and end the day on a positive note that way. It really helps to bookend the day for me. All right. Next up, I want to talk about gathering what motivates you. So this is all new, probably for you. It's also kind of hard. I'm be perfectly honest with you. This isn't easy stuff to do. You're changing everything about how you work. You're changing how you approach, your skills and your time and your day and your space. It's not easy, but if you really want it, if this is something you really want to do, if you want to become a freelancer, if you want to spend more time at home, if you want to travel or make extra money on the side, whatever it is you're doing this for, you need to tap into your motivation, and you need to remind yourself of that motivation every single day, because it's easy to fall into the minutia of, why am I writing for this person who's such a jerk to me? Just remind yourself why you're doing it. At the same time, when you remind yourself why you're doing it, you continuously look for positive experiences. You don't take content just because it's another project. You take it because you enjoy it, or because you want to grow your skills in that area, or because you want to help or be around your family for that week. I know a lot of you probably still have day jobs right now, so this is not something you're doing, full time yet, but think about it that way now. It'll make it so much easier if you move to that point later. So think about what motivates you, whether it's family or friends or a specific goal you have or a lifestyle you want to live. Then create a file on your computer, or you can get a whiteboard or a corkboard or whatever it is, and then illustrate those things. What does it look like? What does your motivation look like? If it's your family, easy. Put up pictures of your family. Have them around you while you're working so you can see the reason why you're doing all this. And then remind yourself daily why you do what you do. That journal in the morning is perfect. Sit down, you're writing for 15 minutes. Tell yourself, these are the reasons why I'm killing myself right now. This is the reasons I'm staying up late tonight to get some extra work done. These are the reasons why I'm watching this video course and taking notes and really striving to get something out of this. That's the kind of stuff that's really going to get you ahead. All right. And then the boring stuff. Switching gears a little bit here. Organizational systems. This is the cool stuff, though. This really helps you focus on what gets things done for you in the background. And it helps you organize all those little nitpicky details that you would otherwise ignore or just not get to. By far, the most important thing you can do as a freelancer is have a good organizational system in place and not just fly by the seat of your pants and hope you get it done. So creating a system for tracking and managing your work. If you haven't yet, read Getting Things Done by David Allen. This is a fantastic book. It is the first thing I recommend to every employee I hire for the company I work for. It is also a book I reread every year or so and he has a new edition actually out very recently in 2015. So even better if you've read it in the past and haven't read the new edition yet. The idea basically being, though, you record all of your tasks as they come in. You put them in some kind of inbox. Usually it's an app of some sort, but it could also be a notebook. And then at some point during the day, you're going to go through and organize all that stuff. You're going to organize it by project, by context, by priority, by timing, whatever it is. And then you're going to have everything kind of fall into this giant to-do list that's organized by all these different factors. And then when you need to get something done, you can go through and see what's due tomorrow, what's due, while you're in the office, what's due that you need to make a phone call for. However you need to organize that stuff, this will help you do it. Some of the software I use, I have a Mac at home, so I use OmniFocus for that. It also works on iOS, so it works on the iPhone or the iPad. I use ToodleDo on my PC at work. ToodleDo is universal because it's a web app and also has an app for your phone. But it's not the most visually impressive tool, but it's very efficient and effective. Remember the Milk is another great one that works on all platforms. And I recently started working with Todoist, which is a platform that works, I think, on everything. And I haven't really gotten into it as much, but so far it looks really good as a possible replacement for all these other tools I'm using. But the bottom line is, and they all kind of do the same thing, it's a place to put all your stuff, and you don't have to write down in Post-it notes or whatever it is you use right now. You remember all the little things you need to do. All right. The key at the end of this is that you want to trust your to-do list. And this takes a little bit of time, but if you get into the habit of writing down every single thing you need to do, you never have to think about it because it's on a list somewhere. It's been organized. It's been put on a day. You know that it's going to come up before it needs to get done. That's amazing. The freedom you get from that and the mental energy it clears up, it's going to make all of this so much easier for you. If you want to read a book about this, I have a really short one on Amazon that kind of covers all these topics. I'm going to put a link in the notes here so you can go to my website and download it for free as a PDF. But if you want the Kindle version, it's $2.99 on Amazon. It is occasionally on sale, so you can take a look. But the PDF is free. So not asking you to go spend more money on anything, but it is a great short little book. 37 tips just kind of help, organize all this stuff a little bit better for you. All right. Finally, last thing here, work with a purpose. Everything you're doing has a reason. You want to create a work system that motivates and inspires you. You want to know that what you're working towards and the lifestyle that you're building is for you, and that's why you're doing all these things. And then utilize the tools and resources we've talked about to make all this a reality. You're doing these things for a reason. You're not doing it just because you hate your job. I hope you're not doing it just because you hate your job. You probably hate your job because you're not home as much, or you're not doing a thing you enjoy. You don't see your kids enough. Think positive. Those are the things you want to make happen. Don't think negative and I need to quit my job, so I have to do this. It's easy to get into that mindset. Trust me, I've been there. But The more you think positive, the more you focus on what you want to get out of it, the better you're going to be. All right, so last but not least, today's actions. Determine where you want to work on a daily basis and ensure that space is ready for you every day. Create a motivational board or notebook you can reference for these work sessions. Make a list of new habits you want to create and start working towards them. And then choose software and build your to-do list. You can actually do this in a notebook too, by the way. You don't need to use any of those tools. Another really good free tool that I like is called Trello. And it's not designed like that, but it can do all those things just the same. And it's a great to-do list in general. So again, all the links for that stuff will be in the notes for this. So that's everything for today. Make sure you leave comments below if you have any questions. Shoot me a direct email if you want to talk about any of this in greater detail. Check out that to-do list ebook. Download the Kindle or the PDF from my website. You can get it for free. And then there's a couple books in there as well from Charles Duhigg and David Allen. Links for those also in the notes below. So if you're, again, if you enjoy everything and you want to check out, or if you want to leave me a review, I would love it. I would love your feedback. And that's everything for today. I'll talk to you tomorrow.